What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name's CJ. This is Out of Bounds DFS, and in today's video we're going to be looking at the PrizePicks NBA board for March 2nd. It's 11 a.m. here on the East Coast, so if you're watching this video, just keep in mind that the projections you see in today's video over on PrizePicks, featured in Roto Grinders, well, they typically change throughout the day as injury news breaks, as people start putting in some picks. You'll see that these numbers go up, some of them go down, so things will shift and change throughout the day. Always keep that in mind. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome to Out of Bounds DFS. Here on this channel, we talk mostly prize picks, monkey knife fight, single player daily fantasy sports. So if that's something you're into, hit the subscribe button. Make sure notifications are turned on so you don't miss any of the videos that I put out when they drop. Thanks for all your support. We're on our way to 700 subscribers. In case you haven't heard, the goal is to hit 700 subscribers by the end of March. I think we could definitely do that. We've had some fantastic momentum and we're definitely on a roll. So thank you all once again for your continued support. Without further ado, we've got a 6-game NBA slate to talk about tonight, and we're going to start things off as we usually do with injury news. Now, there's not a whole lot of injury news to talk about, but there are some impactful injuries that we need to discuss. So Anthony Davis continues to be out for the Los Angeles Lakers. Jaylen Brown is questionable for the Boston Celtics. Jimmy Butler also questionable for the Miami Heat. Paul Millsap out for the Denver Nuggets. Kyle Anderson questionable for the Memphis Grizzlies. Elfrid Payton doubtful for the New York Knicks. JaMychal Green out for the Denver Nuggets. Keldon Johnson questionable for the San Antonio Spurs. Derek White doubtful for the San Antonio Spurs. And finally, Cam Reddish out for the Atlanta Hawks. So with that out of the way, we can start talking some of these projections. And the first game up on the board is the Memphis Grizzlies versus the Washington Wizards. So we got the likes of Ja Morant, Jonas Valanciunas, Dillon Brooks on the Memphis side. And then over on the Washington side, of course, Bradley Beal, Russell Westbrook, the dynamic duo for the Wizards, and Rui Hachimura also on the board. So we'll head over to Roto Grinders. We will enable these two teams. And right off the bat here, guys, we got to talk game total and spread because the game totals are looking quite scrumptious here. Looking at the totals, we've got over 230 combined points. That's fantastic. Usually when there's more total points, there's more fantasy upside, I would say. So more real life points, more rebounds, more assists, just more action overall. There's going to be a lot more production coming out of games with higher totals. So loving that. That's a big green light for me. And the fact that the spread is just 1 point is another huge green light for me. So we're going to do what we've been doing in the past few videos, and I think we've uncovered some real hidden gems by doing this. We're going to use this nifty little feature here called DVA, defense versus archetype. So instead of DVP, defense versus position, Roto Grinders has taken it a step further, and this is like an enhanced version of DVP. So I like starting here because you can kind of see how teams, defenses, how giving or how generous they have been to certain positions or certain archetypes or types of players. So let's start there. Ja Morant is the first guy that catches my eye. Now, he's projected at 38. I think he started the day off at 40, so you can already see that the projections have started to slide on Ja Morant. His projection is 37.43 over on Roto Grinders today, so they like a slight under, but still, they're in that 37 to 38 point range on Ja Morant, so I think they're appropriately projecting him. So let's dig into his game logs real quick and see how he's been performing in recent games. We go back to his 5th game here. I like giving you guys a 5-game snapshot, give you a clearer picture of how he's been performing recently. 25.5 would put him well under 38. 45.3 would put him over. 28.9 would put him under. 36.3 would put him under. And 24.7 would also put him under. So guys, it has been a ugly stretch of games for Ja Morant. He has failed to hit that over on this 38 in 4 out of 5 games. So just going over once, 45.3, doesn't instill a whole lot of confidence that this is a situation where Ja can go over. Now, looking back here at his recent game logs, it looks like there aren't any previous matchups versus the Washington Wizards, so we could jump ahead here and talk minutes. His minutes have kind of been all over the place. Now, Roto-Grinders, they've got him projected to play 33 tonight, which would be good for him. He is a combo guard, and why I selected Ja Morant is the fact that the Washington Wizards are giving up over 54 fantasy points per game to combo guards like Ja Morant. So, 54.36, that's a much, much higher number than the projection of 38. So to say that there's upside or ceiling here for Ja Morant would be a fair statement. Now, this is 2 games and 3 nights for Ja. He's been playing over 30 minutes per game, 1.14 fantasy point per minute, plus a usage rating of over 30. So very good productivity when he's out on the floor. We just need him to play steady, constant minutes here. So it's a little worrisome where his minute totals have been over his last few games. We'll just open his game logs up real quick and talk about that because it was something that stood out to me. So 26 minutes, then he jumps up to 30, back down to 29, up to 33, and then down to 26. Now, I'd have to go back and dig deeper, but some of those games might have been blowouts where he didn't have to play. It didn't make any sense for him to play major minutes, but if he does get this 30 to 33 minute type of production here, I do like the over here for Ja Morant, given that the game totals are so high, the spread is so freaking close, and the fact that the Washington Wizards are a very generous basketball team when it comes to combo guards like Ja Morant. So I think going over here makes a lot of sense on him. Now going down here, next guy we're going to talk about is Russell Westbrook real quick. He's projected at 49, pretty big number there for Russ, but he's been playing fantastic basketball in recent days. His projection on Roto-Grinders is 48.41, so yeah, that would put him as a slight under, but still, they're in the neighborhood there of 48 to 49 is PrizePicks. Now, we're going to try and determine if we can go over or under on him based on his recent game logs, and it looks like 5 games back, he had a 60-point performance, so that would be well over 49. 51.8 would put him over, 47 will put him under, 54.8 would put him over, and 44.2 would put him under. So I mentioned the overs and the unders because I don't want this video to just be like, hey, we're just targeting guys that have a chance to go over. Yeah, sure, rooting for the over is always fun. Who doesn't want to watch a basketball game where these guys are going back and forth and they're just lighting it up? It's okay to target people that are also going to go under. So when we do these evaluations on these players and their projections, just keep that in mind, is that, hey, we're not necessarily looking for guys that are going to go over all the time. Sometimes it just makes more sense to take the guy that's going to go under. But in this case, Russell Westbrook has went over in 3 out of 5, going under in 2 out of 5. So looking at his minutes tonight, 36 minutes, 48.41 fantasy points. He is a combo guard. Now, the Grizzlies have given up 42.19 fantasy points per game to combo guards this season. Now you give, some credit to Russell Westbrook. You factor him in that he's not just some generic old combo guard. He's Russell Westbrook, and you can kind of see where there's some upside here for him to potentially reach 48, 49 fantasy points. Now, this is a 3-game and 4-night rest situation for Westbrook, so maybe fatigue plays a factor a little bit. 34 minutes per game this season, 1.33 fantasy points per minute, and a usage rating of 33.77. Still getting it done. He may not be the same Russell Westbrook in terms of athleticism and stuff. Maybe that's starting to slip a little bit, but dude is still super, super productive. So here's another guy that really stands out to me, Rui Hachimura, who's projected at 25 over on PrizePicks. His projection on Roto-Grinders is just 24.27, but again, Roto-Grinders, PrizePicks, they seem to be in sync here. I mean, they seem to have these guys dialed in, and they're in agreement, both sites are. So here's where we might be able to get an edge, though, is the fact that the Grizzlies are giving up over 36 fantasy points, almost 37 fantasy points per game to versatile forwards. Let's take a look at Hachimura and try to figure out, is the over, the under, the way to go on him? Because I can guarantee you that this game is going to be a game that you're going to want to target in terms of overs. That's why we're talking so many overs on this one, because of the totals, because of the spread. There's tons of upside for everyone all around here. So Rui Hachimura, going back to his 5th game here, 24.2, that'd put him under 25. 21.8 would put him under. 28 would put him over. 15.2 and 12.7 puts him way under. So it's been shaky. If you don't trust this guy, I can't disagree with you. he has went over in 4 out of his last 5, so it's been hard to trust Rui Hachimura here. The only thing that is working in his favor that may lead me to think that there's some upside here, a chance that he breaks out of this recent slump, is the fact that this DVA number is so favorable for him. Again, Memphis allowing almost 37 fantasy points per game to versatile forwards like Rui. And this is a 3 games and 4 night situation for him, playing over 30 minutes per game. Now, this isn't favorable for him. 0.78 fantasy points per minute. Not good at all. Usage rating, 17.64. So those numbers are terrible. So there's a good reason why this guy has so many bad games in his recent game logs. He's playing with usage monsters and fantasy point per minute monsters in Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal. So that doesn't leave a whole lot of room for Rui Hachimura to get his. So moving down the list here, anybody else really standing out? There's Bradley Beal. Looks like Memphis has done a pretty good job against scoring wings, so maybe going under on Bradley Beal tonight makes some sense. He's projected at 48 on PrizePicks. They've got him at 47.47, so they're pretty dialed in here. Both RotoGrinders and PrizePicks seem to be aligned on a lot of these projections. Not seeing a super huge edge here. This seems like the type of game where it's going to be more guard-oriented, a lot more guard play, in my opinion. Maybe a guy like Jonas Valanciunas kind of gets game scripted out or phased out here. He's at 35 on PrizePicks, 35 over on RotoGrinders. So, again, not a super good edge there for us. Yeah, I think that's pretty much going to do it, guys. I mean, some of these guys that you see down here at the bottom, Dillon Brooks, Valanciunas, maybe going under on those guys makes some sense just due to the fact that the DVA numbers are so low on them. These aren't plus or favorable matchups, but that's enough about that game. Let's go ahead and start talking about the next game on the board, which features a lot of star power. This is another game that's just loaded with talent. We got Kawhi Leonard, Jason Tatum, Paul George, Jaylen Brown, Serge Ibaka, Kimball Walker. Lots of big names here. So we'll enable this game, both of these teams, and we'll start with the game totals, where it doesn't look like there's a ton of points going to be put up by either side here. Definitely liking the Clippers side more on this one. Boston 109.25. They're the home underdogs here by a few points to this LA Clippers team. So you're looking at a 4-point spread. So totals are okay. Spread for me probably still in the green, but there's definitely a chance here that the Clippers can come out and jump all over Boston, especially if a guy like Jaylen Brown ends up sitting out. He's a big piece, a big part of what the Celtics do. If he's out, I mean, obviously bumps to Jason Tatum, bumps to Kimball Walker. So those are some guys that you could potentially target if Jaylen Brown doesn't suit up. Now, speaking of Kimball Walker, he's projected at 33.5 points today. His projection on RotoGrinders is lower than 33.5 points by almost 2 points. So they like the under on Kimball Walker. But we're going to talk about why I think Kimball Walker could go over here. Let's dig into his game logs first. Alrighty. So if we go back here to his 5th game, you can see he put up a massive number there, 52 fantasy points, hitting that 50 burger. 28.2 would put him under, 30.3 would put him under, 46.6 and 42 in his last 2 games, guys. So he's been playing better basketball in his last couple of games here. Overall, he has went over 3 times and under 2 times. So looks like the overs have been the way to go for Kimball Walker in his last few games. He's been able to hit that 33.5 mark more often than not. Now, looking back here, I don't see any previous game logs of Kemba versus Clippers, so we can move ahead here and discuss minutes, where he's expected to play about 33 tonight. Now, this is why I'm talking Kimball Walker, because this number right here, 52.27, is the amount of fantasy points per game that this Clippers team allows to combo guards like Kimball Walker. So, a couple of things to keep in mind here. A, if Jaylen Brown sits out, this is going to be a big bump, big boost to Kimball Walker and Jason Tatum. So that's one thing that could potentially work in Kimball Walker's favor, especially if we're talking about taking the over. Another thing is this DVA number. The fact that this 52.27 fantasy points per game allowed is so much higher than his fantasy score of 33.5 over on PrizePicks right now means that there's a lot of room here for a ceiling, that there's a lot of upside, a lot of potential for Kimball Walker to go over. So those are some things that are working in his favor. Now, I will say this LA Clippers team has been shorthanded for a lot of the season, meaning guys like Kawhi Leonard have missed time, Paul George has missed time, Patrick Beverley has missed time. Now, when they're all healthy, I'm sure they're allowing a lot less fantasy points per game to combo guards like Kimball Walker. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind, that these numbers may be skewed a little bit due to how much time key components of this Clippers team have missed. Now, this is 2 games and 3 nights for him. He is not playing 30 minutes per game, just slightly under that number. 1.06 fantasy points per minute and a usage rating of 28.36. So again, Jaylen Brown is out. These numbers will rise and Kimball Walker will take on a much larger load. But overall, guys, he's been playing pretty good basketball in his last 2. And I think there's a case to be made here for Kimball Walker potentially going over this 33.5 point mark. So let's keep working our way down the line here. Here's a guy we don't talk a ton about, and that's Serge Ibaka, who's projected at 22. He's at 21.7 over on RotoGrinders. So again, this is another situation where RotoGrinders and PrizePicks are pretty locked in here on this projection of 21 to 22 points for Serge Ibaka. Now, why the over could make some sense is the fact that the Celtics are allowing 31.42 fantasy points per game to versatile bigs like Ibaka. Now, I will warn you that with Serge Ibaka, he always kind of seems to start games out real hot, real heavy, and then just falls off a cliff. I mean, you never hear from him after like the first quarter or 2. We're going to look at his game logs real quick, though, and see if this 22 number that they have him at on PrizePicks currently is the number that he's been going over on or under on in recent memory. Now, going back to his 5th game here, 22.6 puts him over, 21.2 puts him just under 22, 20.4 under, 30.3 and 37.2 are pretty healthy overs versus this projection of 22. So in his last 5 games, guys, it looks like the over on 22 points has been the way to go on Serge Ibaka. So he's expected to play just 22 minutes tonight. That's a little shaky, a little scary for me. Normally, if you want to take overs on guys, you'd like to see them out on the floor playing as many minutes as possible. So the fact that he's projected to play just 22 minutes is a little worrisome. But as I mentioned, Boston not very strong on the interior, allowing versatile bigs like Ibaka 31 fantasy points per game. 2 games and 3 nights for Ibaka, playing 24 minutes per night. But tonight sounds like he's going to be playing less than 24 minutes. So again, a little bit of a knock on Ibaka. 1.07 fantasy points per game, and his usage rating is at 19.14. Not a ton of usage for Ibaka. He's just not a guy who has his hands all over the basketball. So moving down the line here, we got Paul George projected at 41. He's at 40 over on RotoGrinders. They like the under on him, and based on the fact that the DVA is working against him, this is a negative DVA situation. This could be a situation where you want to take the under on Paul George. Moving on down the line, Kawhi Leonard also falls into that versatile forward category. He's another guy that is a sizable under. Now, he's projected at 48. They've got him at 42.44 on RotoGrinders. So a huge gap there, a huge delta. So maybe going under on Kawhi Leonard is the way to go there. The Celtics do have some pretty good defenders, some pretty good wing guys. Now, if Jaylen Brown's out, well then I say this is a bump up for both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Moving on down the line here, though, Jason Tatum, he's been a little hard to trust in recent games. Clippers, again, should be fully healthy here with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. I'd imagine one of those two will be matched up with Jason Tatum, so I expect a tough night for Tatum. And so does RotoGrinders. They got him at 42.23, which puts him under this 45. But, yeah, I think that's going to do it for this game. Overall, game totals aren't super good, aren't very high, but the spread is reasonable. It just really depends on some of this injury news, mainly speaking about Jaylen Brown. So if he's ruled out, I think the spread becomes even bigger, and I think that this game does not stay close. So now that we've got that one all wrapped up, we can start talking Atlanta Hawks basketball. They're taking on the Miami Heat. The Hawks just let their head coach go. It sounds like Nate McMillan is going to be the new man in charge. So for me, that puts a big, giant, looming question mark over how this offense will run. How will it operate? with a new head coach? Well, we'll have to wait and see, and only time will tell. But let's go ahead and talk about this game real quick. We'll start at the top with the game totals and spread, as we typically do. Miami 112, the Atlanta Hawks 108.5. So you're talking about a 3 to 4 point spread here. Puts it in the green for me in terms of spread. As far as totals, not super juicy here. Probably call it just okay. Not good, very good, great, or anything like that. It's just okay. It's doable. It's passable. So let's start drilling down here and seeing where we can possibly target some of these overs or unders. Now, Trey Young is one guy that catches my eye. He's projected at 44 today over on PrizePicks. Well, RotoGrinders has him at 46.46, which would put him as a pretty big over right now. So let's dig into his game logs real quick. The DVA is looking quite nice for Trey Young. Alrighty, so his last 5 games, kind of a tale of two tapes here, I guess you could say. First 3 in his last 5 game logs here, 64.7, 52.4, and 47.3. It's going to be overs on this 44. But then he goes down to 33.2 and 37.1. So 3 overs, 2 unders for Trey Young recently. Now, he did play Miami in his last game. So this is a back-to-back, a rematch game for Trey Young. And in that first game against Miami, despite the impressive DVA or the favorable DVA for Trey Young, he was not able to capitalize. He just ended up with 37.1 fantasy points in that one. Now, a big thing to blame on that is the fact that, well, he only took 14 shots. And of the 14 shots that he took, he only made 3 of them. So not a very good field goal percentage when you're shooting 21%. Trey Young's the type of guy where his shots got to be dropping in order for him to get 44 or more fantasy points for you. So maybe tonight he shoots the ball a bit better. Let's hope. Now, he's playing 36 minutes. We already talked about the projection here. The DVA, again, 51.5 points per game allowed by this Miami Heat defense, so they're not very good at defending combo guards typically. And the fact that Trey Young is one of the better combo guards would lend itself to make you want to choose the over on this 44 projection. But again, he's got to make his shots. That's the big thing for him. 2 games and 3 nights for Trey. He's playing just under 35 minutes per game, 1.28 fantasy points per minute, and a usage rating of 34.29. So fantastic numbers for him. We're going to continue working our way down here. We got Clint Capela. He's projected at 39 over on PrizePicks. They've got him at 40.69 on RotoGrinders, so that would make him a slight over in today's matchup. Let's just look and see how he did in his last game, which was against Miami. Get a better idea, better read on Clint Capela. So you could see in his last couple of games, actually, he's went for 50 or more fantasy points. So maybe going over on Capela is the way we should be going here. Now let's look at his last 5. Overall here, 36.5 would put him under. 38.7 would put him slightly under. 29.3, not a very good game, but he only played 21 minutes. Keep that in mind. 56.2 and a 50.3 in his last meeting with this Miami Heat squad. So Bam Adebayo, Kelly Olynyk, those types of guys were not able to slow Clint Capela down. So that looks very favorable for Capela. Now tonight they expect him to play 32 minutes. He's a post-up big. Post-up bigs against Miami have just scored on average 27.2 fantasy points per game. 2 games and 3 nights for him, playing almost 30 minutes per game, 1.38 fantasy points per minute, guys. That's one of the better numbers for all of the centers in the league. And then his usage rating is just 19.04, which is pretty indicative of a post-up big. They just typically won't touch the ball a whole lot. Guys like Jared Allen, Rudy Gobert, Steven Adams, the list goes on. But those guys, yeah, they're not going to handle the rock a whole lot. So their usage rating typically is a bit lower. But yeah, based on what I'm seeing here, Clint Capela had a pretty good game against this Miami Heat in his last one, going for over 50. The fact that RotoGrinders likes the over on his projection of 39. Game should stay pretty close, pretty competitive. The only question mark again is how will Nate McMillan use this basketball team and use the key players in this team. So we'll have to figure that part out. But let's continue to work down the list here. Jimmy Butler, as we mentioned, he might miss tonight's game. He is not currently on this list of projections on RotoGrinders, so could be a chance that maybe Jimmy Buckets doesn't play tonight. I just want to take a quick peek on Bam Adebayo, who's projected at 42 on PrizePicks. How did he do in his last game against the Hawks? Well, he ended up going for 43, and in his last 5 games, guys, he's went over in 4 out of 5 on this projection of 42. So he's been playing very good basketball. Jimmy Butler's out, definitely taking the over on Bam Adebayo. I think that makes some sense. So let's go ahead and wrap that up, and we can go on to the next game here. We'll get off of these Atlanta Hawks and Miami Heat guys, and we'll move on to the New York Knicks and San Antonio Spurs. We got the likes of Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, and D Rose. D Rose hurt a lot of our feelings in the Out of Bounds DFS Discord. By the way, if you're not a member of the Out of Bounds DFS Discord, it's totally free to join. Plus, there's a premium channel where we talk even more DFS, whether it be NBA, CSGO, college basketball. I mean, we're playing everything in there. So if you're interested in becoming a premium member, it helps support me and what I do here on YouTube. And I try to give back as much as I can to help you guys out on PrizePicks. So it's just $20 a month, and I think it's well worth it. You could definitely make your money back in just one night. But anyways, a lot of these guys, including myself, had Derrick Rose over the other night, and it was a good matchup against the Detroit Pistons, his former team. We had that narrative going for us, and it just did not pan out. Derrick Rose ended up turning over the ball late in the game, and it ended up putting him under 30 fantasy points, which lost me and a lot of folks some money. So let's take a look and start breaking down this game here from the top. New York Knicks, San Antonio Spurs, not fantastic game totals right off the jump here. San Antonio is a 1.5 point favorite at home as they host this New York Knicks team. So 1.5 point spread is great, but the totals here are light. I mean, there's not going to be a ton of upside here from a fantasy perspective. So I'd probably just stick to using the main guys. And when I say main guys, I mean the guys with the highest fantasy point per minute numbers, the guys with the highest usage ratings. Stick to using those guys in these games where the totals aren't very high, because you know on average that these guys are going to eat. They're going to get theirs. So basketball, pretty predictable when it comes to that sort of thing. Now, we're going back to him. We're going to go back to Derrick Rose here because we just have to. And the reason why is, well, this DVA number is just too good to pass up. This matchup here against the San Antonio Spurs is the best matchup for combo guards in all of the NBA. Guys, the Spurs are allowing over 60 fantasy points per game to combo guards like Derrick Rose. So how could we not discuss Derrick Rose as a potential over on this matchup? Now let's look at his last 5 games here. He got 10 points. Not good whatsoever. But then he bounces back here, getting a lot more minutes. 37.8, fantastic. 27.6 puts him under. 42.7 puts him well over 33. And then this is the last game, the game that I was talking about. That was a heartbreaker for many of us. He did play over 32 minutes, had plenty of field goal attempts, attempted 14 shots, just didn't hit enough of them for us. Ended up with 29.1 fantasy points. So in his last 5 guys, he's went over 33 in 2 games and went under 33 in 3 games. But as I mentioned, his last 4 games, his minutes are up, and especially in his last 2 games, he's played well over 30 minutes in both of those. So things are trending upward for Derrick Rose here. Now tonight, they've got him projected to play about 30 minutes, which is a good sign. I've already mentioned San Antonio, the most generous team in the league to combo guards. This is a high ceiling, high upside situation for Rose. Now, 3 games and 4 nights. He's an older player. Yeah, fatigue could be a factor here. He's been playing more minutes lately, so it's a little worrisome. 1.09 fantasy points per minute and a usage rating of 27.93. Now, I won't try to sell you on Derrick Rose. I won't try to overpromise on Derrick Rose. I will say this, that the main usage guys on this team are going to be the likes of like Julius Randle, RJ Barrett. There's times where Derrick Rose is out there just running laps, it seems like, where he's just up and down. He's not, super involved with some of these higher usage guys out on the basketball court with him. So just a word of warning on D Rose. So we can keep moving down the line here. Now, Dejunte Murray is a dude that is super interesting. He's projected at 40.5, not 40, not 41, 40.5. And over on Roto Grinders, they got him at 39.25. So they like the under on Dejunte Murray. Now, the reason we're going to talk about him is that this Knicks team is allowing over 48 fantasy points per game to combo guards like Murray. So let's dig into the game logs and see what he's been up to. Alrighty. So you can see in his last 5, 33.7 puts him under, 55.4 over, 52.8 over, 47.7 over, and then last night he came up a bit short for us, 36.2. I think a lot of sites had him going over his projection of 40.5, just didn't get there. So in his last 5 guys, he's went over 3 times, under twice. So overall, the over has been the way to go on Dejunte Murray. Now, looking back here, I don't see any previous game logs of him versus the Knicks. He's expected to play about 34 minutes tonight. As I mentioned before, combo guards against this Knicks team. The Knicks have not defended combo guards well at all this season. It's been a spot where we want to target the overs when it comes to some of these guards against this Knicks team. And I think this is another situation where we can do that. Now, back-to-back, 3 games in 4 nights rest situation for Dejunte Murray. Something to keep in mind. Could be a little bit of a fatigue factor. He's playing almost 31 minutes per game, 1.15 fantasy points per minute, and 23.89 usage rating. So I do like this spot for Dejunte Murray just based on how the Knicks have failed to stop or slow down combo guards and just point guards in general. They're just not very good defensively against guards like Murray. So moving on down the line here, we've got Julius Randle's up at 46, 44.92 over on Roto Grinders. So if we round this up, call it 45, talking about a 1-point difference there. This DVA situation, not a plus or positive DVA for Randle. They, being the Spurs, are giving up about 36 fantasy points per game to versatile bigs. So that might be a situation where you go under on the 46. He's been pretty consistent in that like 40 to 44 point mark for a lot of games this year. What else is jumping out here? Jakob Poeltl. I don't know how to say his name. Jacob. His projection is 28 over on PrizePicks. He's at 28.17 on Roto Grinders. This is a slight plus DVA situation for him. So if you feel like he is going to get enough minutes and production against a New York Knicks team that will probably roll out Nerlens Noel and Julius Randle, well, maybe taking the over on Jakob Poeltl. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. I still don't know. But 36.4, 32.2 in his last couple of games, and 28.3, 36.2, 45.9. My bad, bro. Maybe I'm sleeping on this guy. He has went over, easily over, in his last 5 games in a row. So, hey, maybe taking the over here is the way to go on Jacob. Otherwise, I'm probably not going to look to target too many other players from this game. As I mentioned, low totals, good spread. That's how I'm feeling about that one. So we can move on to the next game here. We got the Denver Nuggets playing a back-to-back. I had Jamal Murray going over last night. Didn't work out. Let's just say that. Let's see who stands out tonight, though. For Denver, we've got Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. For Milwaukee, we've got Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton, and Drew Holiday. Finally rejoining the Mavericks, the Milwaukee Bucks recently. So he's a guy that's standing out to me right off the jump here. He's projected at 24. They've got him at 28.42 on Roto Grinders. So let's see how he's done since returning to the lineup for this Milwaukee Bucks squad. All right. So he missed a ton of games, guys, a ton of games. And I can understand why you may not want to click his name tonight and try to figure out going over or under, because he's coming off a layoff of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games he missed. Came back, played just about 18 minutes, put up 4.5 fantasy points. He's going to have to play a whole lot more minutes for me to feel comfortable about taking the over. But you can see if we go back here, he was playing really good basketball to start the month of February, even the end of January for this Milwaukee Bucks team. So it's going to come a point where one of these days, I don't know if it's going to be this game or if it's going to be one of his games here in the near future, he's going to get more minutes. He is going to bust out and break out. But right now, I'm just feeling like it's too early to really try and, gamble on him going over 24 fantasy points. So be careful with Jrue Holiday. But yes, this situation lends itself to a very good matchup here. The Denver Nuggets allowing 44.9, almost 45 fantasy points per game to combo guards. But I don't trust the dude's minutes. They got him projected to play 27 minutes tonight. Unless they know something I don't know. I just don't trust it. So let's see who else is standing out here. Jamal Murray, I mentioned him. He kind of came up short last night. He's projected at 39 today. They got him projected at 38.61 here. This game, I didn't really talk much about the totals and spread. Milwaukee 121, Denver 114. Very good totals, but the spread is 7. I don't know if I believe that. This Denver Nuggets team is no pushover. They're no slouch. I do expect the big two here of Jokic and Murray to be very, very involved, and it looks like a great spot here for Jamal Murray to bounce back. Let's look at his recent game logs and take a peek at what Bubble Murray has been up to. I feel comfortable calling him Bubble Murray again because he's been playing better basketball. Now, his last 5, he went over 44.8 here, 50, 51.2, so 3 games in a row where he's went over, and then you got 33.9 and 29.9. Now, this 33.9, he didn't necessarily play bad. He just didn't play a whole lot of minutes. He didn't reach even 31 minutes in that game. 29.9, though, last night was just terrible for him. I think his shots were just down overall. It looks like he only attempted 14 shots. In these games where he has these big monster fantasy numbers, he put up 20, 18, 23, 25 field goal attempts. So we need him shooting the basketball a lot more. And I think he's going to have to in order for this Denver Nuggets team to stay around in this game. So overall, pretty good basketball recently for Jamal Murray. Now tonight, he's expected to play 36 minutes. He's a combo guard. I mentioned Milwaukee allowing almost 45 fantasy points per game to combo guards. Back-to-back, 3 games and 4 nights for Murray. So maybe there's a little bit of a fatigue factor here. Could be. He's playing over 35 minutes per game, 1.01 fantasy points per minute, and a usage rating of 24.88. I would say that those numbers have been up here in recent days. So there you have it for Jamal Murray. There's a good chance that he bounces back here. I mean, they're just going to absolutely need him to do what he does best, and that's score the rock. Michael Porter Jr. is projected at 33. They've got him projected at about 33 over on Roto Grinders. This is a plus DVA situation for him. I'm just going to do a quick recap here on Porter's last few games. Won't dig too deep on him. Just want to get a better read on how he's been performing. All right, in his last few games, you could see that he's went under in 3 out of 5. So he did go over in his last one. That was against Chicago last night. So 2 overs, 3 unders in recent games. Kind of been tough to trust him. His last matchup against Milwaukee, he did end up with 23.4 fantasy points. So this is a guy that I'm probably just going to avoid. He's the type of dude that's good enough, talented enough that he can just pop off on any given night. But then there's games where he just disappears as he plays alongside the likes of Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. So, just not a situation that I'm really looking to target going over or under there. Giannis Antetokounmpo projected at 57. He's at 59 on Roto Grinders. Versatile forwards. Been doing pretty well against the Denver Nuggets. In his last 5 games, he's crushing this 57. No problemo. 72, 62, 67, 58, and 71. Guys, he's went over 57 in 5 straight games. And with the game totals being what they are and the spread, I think going to be a little bit closer than what Vegas thinks, man, this could be another situation where Giannis Antetokounmpo goes over. I really like going over on him. It's hard not to when he's putting up 1.66 fantasy points per minute and a usage rating of almost 35. So moving down the line here, Nikola Jokic makes a lot of sense, I think, for an over. He's at 59 on PrizePicks. The Milwaukee Bucks just don't guard big men very well. I know that the DVA doesn't look fantastic for Jokic at just 29.06, but I'm telling you, the Milwaukee Bucks just don't guard big guys very well. So Nikola Jokic over makes a lot of sense here too. Chris Middleton, he's been struggling lately. He's at 37 on PrizePicks, 39 over on Roto Grinders. Looks like Denver does a fairly good job here of guarding, scoring wings. I don't know that I would continue to take the under on Chris Middleton, but I think in recent games it's been the way to go here more often than not. In his last 5, he's went under this 37 1, 2, 3 times. So 3 out of his last 5 under has been the way to go. But then again, you can see where he's got 46, 63 point upside. So yeah, another one of those situations where I just don't want to touch that guy because he could go over any night, or he could just be a huge disappointment and continue to go under. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for me. Overall, this game, though, looking like a very healthy amount of points being scored by both sides. And the spread of 7, I think, ends up being a little bit more competitive than that. If it ends up getting to 7, it's probably going to happen later in the game. I just think Denver's got enough talent, enough firepower to hang around with these Milwaukee Bucks. So let's move along here and see what else we've got. The final game to talk about is the Phoenix Suns versus the Los Angeles Lakers. So you've got some crazy star power here, the likes of Devin Booker, Chris Paul taking on LeBron James and LeBron James. There's no Anthony Davis, so you got Dennis Schroeder, Montrezl Harrell, and Caruso and Kuzma. They're all trying to chip in, pitch in, and help the King reclaim the throne as the number 1 team in the NBA. But let's take a look here and see what's standing out, what we're liking, what we're not. I mean, Alex Caruso, he's a combo guard. He is projected at 18 on PrizePicks. They got him at 13.38 over on Roto Grinders. So big gap there, big difference. But combo guards against this Suns team, Suns are allowing almost 49 fantasy points per game to Caruso. So, just based on raw projections here, Roto Grinder says go under, but there's a chance here that Caruso can possibly pop off. Now, a guy that's more likely to go over than Caruso is probably Dennis Schroeder. Schroeder's projected at 27 tonight. He's been at 28 in recent games, so they've lowered his projection by 1 point. And that probably makes some sense with the totals being a bit lighter here on both teams. LA 107.75, Phoenix 105.75. Talking about a 2-point spread, which is green for me in order to stay close. The spread at 2, I think, is, that's good. I think this game does stay close and competitive, especially with the Lakers being so shorthanded. Phoenix has been playing some good basketball too, so I think this game does stay close. But anyway, Dennis Schroeder, he's been at 28. They've lowered him down to 27. And I think that makes some sense. Let's look at his recent game logs and see how he's been playing. Now, if we go back to his 5th game here, he played just 21 minutes, ended up with 6 fantasy points. Terrible. 13.2, terrible. But now his minutes are back up here at 32, where he puts up 42 fantasy points. Misses 4 games in a row, comes back, puts up 29.6, and then a 23.6. So, guys, this may be another player that you just kind of want to fade and stay away from. I mean, his game logs are all over the place. He's been in and out of the lineup. It's hard to get into a rhythm. It's hard to build any type of consistency when you're not out there with your boys playing basketball. But plus DVA situation, just wanted to point that out. Kyle Kuzma also in a plus DVA situation. Now he's projected at 22. He's at 23.03 on PrizePick or on Roto Grinders. In his last 5 games, he's been able to go over 22, 1, 2, 3 times out of 5. Almost did it a 4th time here. Ended up at 21.9, but almost doesn't count in the world of sports. So Overall here, guys, he's got 3 overs, 2 unders in his last few games. Again, in a plus DVA matchup. LeBron James projected for 50 on PrizePicks. He's also at 50 over on RotoGrinders. They like him to go slightly over 50. Versatile forwards, 34.44 fantasy points per game allowed by this Phoenix Suns team. Let's see if LeBron has been hitting this 50 number or if he's been going under. I mean, I remember it just seemed like it was like last week where they had LeBron up at like 56 or something like crazy, 52 even. So for him to be down to 50 kind of makes my eyes get big. In his last 5 games, he's went under once. Then you got an over, under, and under. So it's been this seesaw, this over-under seesaw recently. But in total here, he's went under 3 times, over 2 times. So the unders have been the way to go on LeBron James. This is a negative DVA situation, but if anyone is matchup proof, it's guys like LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid. I mean, those dudes, you can pretty much toss these numbers out the window. They're just too darn talented. They can pop off any game, anytime. Devin Booker, speaking of popping off, he had himself a good game the other night. He's projected at 37 tonight over on PrizePicks. On RotoGrinders, he's at 37.17, but in his last game, he went for 57.5 fantasy points. Dude has been shooting shots in his last 3 games. 24 attempts, 26 field goal attempts. So if he's going to keep shooting the ball like that, well, we're going to need those shots to drop because he's a very scoring dependent, shot making dependent type of player in terms of fantasy and really just in real life. So we're going to need those shots to start falling if we're going to trust taking overs on Devin Booker. But he's been another guy where the game logs have just been a little too shaky, a little too inconsistent for me to feel comfortable. Montrezl Harrell's at 28. He's at 29.27 over on RotoGrinders. Plus DVA situation for him. That could be a way to go. Let's look at how his game logs have been shaping up here. Over, under, way under. So 3 out of 5 where he's went over by quite a bit. So that could be a situation. DeAndre Ayton, negative DVA here. He'll probably be matched up with the likes of Marc Gasol, Montrezl Harrell. They got him at 36 on PrizePicks. I think the under makes a lot of sense. He's projected at 32.27 on RotoGrinders. So I'm probably targeting the under on DeAndre Ayton. But yeah, I think that's going to pretty much wrap it up for today's video. I don't want to get too into the weeds on any of these guys here, but hopefully you get a better read on what's going on in tonight's NBA schedule. So if there's anybody you're liking from this video or not liking, let me know down in the comments section below. And why. And if you're taking the over, tell me why. If you're taking the under, I'd like to know why too. I'd like to hear your thoughts, your picks, your plays. Drop a comment down below if you have some time. But appreciate all your support, guys, for real. I mean, you guys are just showing an outpouring of appreciation for what I do here, talking PrizePicks, NBA, DFS, and all that. So it means a lot to me that you continue to support my work, and look forward to making more of this type of stuff for you in the future. But for now, this has been CJ for Out of Bounds DFS. Until the next video, guys, let's try to win some money tonight. Peace.